Hello and welcome to a new watercolour tutorial. Today I'm painting this cute little cottage and I'm using the Gansai Tambi watercolours, and I'm painting this in a tutorial step-by-step style if you want to paint along with me. I've also got this available for you to download. This is free to my followers and members on Patreon. I've got links below in the description if you want to go and have a look at that. I'm using Gansai Tambi watercolours for this one and some Archie's watercolour paper, but everything will be listed in the description below. And if you'd like to watch the real-time version, that's available on my Patreon as well, and that's totally uncut, every brush stroke. You can just paint along at the same time as me in real time. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to use the Gansai Tambi paints today, so I'll get some colours picked out. Sorry if you can hear that fan in the background, but I've got to have it on because it's just so hot upstairs and we're in another heat wave, which is unusual for the UK. I think I'll go for natural beige. Go on, I'll go for the Mars yellow again. I'm going to have like a blue on the roofs. I'll get some cadmium orange as well. And then for the roofs, I think I'll go Prussian Blue actually. Prussian Blue. And then for shadows on the roof, I'll go Grayish Blue. I'm going to make up some of the colours for the buildings. So I'll start with the light creamy colour, natural beige. Some of the Mars yellow. And a little bit of the cadmium orange. I'm going to paint a little bit of water all over the front of the house area. I'm using a fairly small brush here because it's only a small area. This is a number 3 round brush. So I'm just carefully painting around all these little pieces with the water, and then when I drop the paint in, it will only spread into the wet areas. I'm just going to paint right over the flowers at the bottom. I'm going to have this houses the same colour. I'm just going to do one at a time because I want one to be darker than the other. And I'm going to get that creamy beige colour and drop that in around all the kind of centre areas. And then I'm going to drop in the darker colour into the edges. Might add a little bit of the orange, just drop a little bit in here and there, just to add a little bit more intensity in that colour. I'm going to add a little bit of Aureolin as well in this one, just to try and make just a little bit of difference. I want it kind of like a nice Indian yellow kind of look, but there isn't really an Indian yellow. I'm going to make this a lot darker here at this side. Put loads of orange in as well underneath the roof. try and make it more shaded. Just kind of mix the colours up, so I'm putting some of the beige in as well. And this paper can just take absolutely loads of water, so you can just throw it down. I want to make this even darker, and these colours aren't going to make that darker, so I'm going to get a brownie colour just to add some darkness. So I'll use this yellow brown, get it quite thick on the brush, and we'll just drop it in along the edge and kind of underneath the roof ledge a little bit at the bottom, because we want to kind of make that look as though it's further back. So we'll make that darker, and then this one lighter here. A bit more darkness. I mean, we can always add more layers over the top if we can't get the colour depth that we want. But I've kind of gone onto the dry paper there with that brown, and it's created that nice edge. I'll just take it down a bit and kind of to the edge of the house here. Even darker in this corner here. So that's a really thick. Okay, so I'll dry that one off now. Now I'm going to make up some of the blues for the roof. So we're starting with the lighter blue. Now let's get a little bit of the darker blue. Looks a bit bright there. I wanted it a little bit more muted. I'll just put it in and then maybe add a more muted one afterwards if it's not right. So I'll do the same again, wet the roof. I'm going to carefully go around this roof here. And then drop the lighter blue kind of in the middle. That's a gorgeous blue, absolutely gorgeous. Don't think I've really used that one much. Get some of the darker blue. I think this is going to be way too bright. We'll see what it's like when it's dry. And just put that over to one side, slightly go over the orange there. I'm curving it round at that corner. Get some more of the lighter blue and kind of mix it in. That's toning that down a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit of kitchen towel and just lift some of that out in the middle, because I don't really want it that dark. Just absorb some of it up. A little bit of darkness under here, where there'd be a little bit of shade. Then I'm going to get this brush, lift some of that out, dab it on the towel, just so we've got like a highlighted patch. In fact, I'm going to make it a little bit darker across this edge and put the highlighted patch more into the middle. Going to get a little bit of indigo, and I'm going to just get a tiny little bit. I'm going to drop that into the edge while this pen is still wet. That's kind of the look I was going for. Darker edge, let it kind of blend, and then under here as well. A little bit across here. It will be super dark in these little bits here underneath these little ledges. you can see how it's give the illusion that this one is further back, this one's set forward a bit. Now for this roof, I think I'll do a red roof for this one. So I don't want it to be like a super bright red, so I'm going to use this cadmium red, which is just a little bit more muted than these ones. So this cadmium red, and then I thought this Indian red as a little bit of shade, a little bit of a darker red for a little bit of shading. I'm not going to need much. And same again, I'll just wet the area. It won't need much water, it's only a tiny little area. Put in the cadmium red. Leave just some little edges for the darker red. Get some of the darker red. And just fill in those white spaces. Maybe lift a bit up because I want this edge to stand out against the blue. So I'll make the edge a little bit lighter. I'll make this little roof red as well, this little one here. I'll just go right in, needn't wet this one first. Just go right in with the cadmium red, just colour the whole thing in that. Just add a little bit of darkness at the top and maybe down the side and just a little bit on that side. These bits are also going to be the same colour as the house, so I'll do this chimney pot first. Little bit of indigo, and I'm going to make the chimney pot indigo. Drop a little bit of darker colour in, maybe just to one side and the bottom. Just leave that to dry, kind of like that. Okay, so that's where we are so far. I'm going to get another little bit of indigo. Just going to round that off a little bit more there. And I'm going to just add it to the very edge of the house, this roof, just to darken that a little bit more. Then a little bit of water, and just rub on that edge and then kind of drag it down. Drop a little bit more in. Bit of water, just to meet that colour, and then it'll blend it nicely. I'm taking the water out further so that we don't get a edge where the water ends. And then I'm going to put a little bit under here as well. I want that to be super dark. Droplet of water. If you put the water here next to it, and then take that the water up to the edge of the paint, and you get that gorgeous blend. I'm going to do a couple of little tiny dark bits under here and under there. I'm going to make this super dark blue, this little window. This one as well. Just going to lift a little bit of that out because that's super dark. And I've got the indigo a little bit more watery, and I'm going to paint a few of the other little elements in this blue colour.
Come on, soft, turn the key and cooler on. Push a pause for relief. Free pass, you don't even have to ask to be the cat in the sun. Someday I will see the whole deal through. Today I've got better things to do. Okay, to leave a little bit undone.
I'm using some of the indigo for the ground, so I'm going to carefully paint around these little stones because I didn't put any masking fluid on them and they're going to be a different colour to the ground. So I'll just carefully paint around them and then just put some of that indigo, just water it down across the bottom. But I want to leave some white across the bottom. I don't want to go right to the bottom, otherwise the picture won't look balanced. So that's as far as I'm going to take it, just kind of out to the sides. And then I'm going to get a little bit of just this Mars yellow and just drop some little bits in different places. Just missed that bit there. So it's just a hint of a piece of ground in front of the house. I've got a little round number 1 brush. I've got the yellow brown, which is like a brown colour. I'm going to paint all the rest of these little bits. So these are little kind of wooden, I don't even know what you call them, but just the wooden bits underneath here. I'm going to paint these little window boxes in like a dark blue. So this is the Prussian Blue, which is quite saturated. And then I'm going to maybe paint the edges of this with the Prussian Blue. Just brighten it up a little bit because it's just looking a little bit kind of faded. Maybe paint a few little stripes on it, as though it's got some riv tiles on it. Just make that kind of loose. That's not really working. I'm just gonna leave a few little gaps. I'm gonna draw a few little lines on these little window shutters. Then on the front door, I'm going to get some of the indigo, quite strong. I'm going to go around the edges, mainly the top. Then clean the brush off. Just got a little bit of water on the brush and drag that down, feather that edge down with the, clean the brush again. And then do the other side, and then I'm going to go and do that right around the edge. Oops. And then I'll make the bottom edge of the door darker as well. A little bit of water on the brush, drag upwards, mainly at the edges. A little more darkness in those corners. I'll just leave it like that because I always try and over smooth things, and it looks quite nice if it's not over smoothed. I also need to make this little window super dark. And I think I'll add a little bit of extra darkness across the bottom of there. Water on the brush, clean brush. Just blend it a little bit. And then the same on this one. I'm going to add red to this little panel here because even though it's supposed to be a window, I just feel like I need to bring some red down. On the other hand, I suppose I could put some red flowers, but I think this might look nice if I just... It doesn't really matter if it doesn't make sense. We just want it to look nice. And I think that red kind of ties in with the red on the roofs. Now I've got the yellow brown. I'm going to add some little shaded bits with this, just some little extra. So I'm going to go under the windowsills because they would be shaded. So I'm using whatever colour you're putting shading on, just put a darker version of that colour. So I'm using blue for the shading on the blue areas, brown for the shading on the orange areas. I'm not sure if this is going to actually be dark enough. Just see what that looks like. I'll go under this chimney pot.
Be the cat in the sun. Be the cat in the sun.
I'm getting a little bit of water on my brush and I'm just going to blend that edge a little bit. Clean the brush again. You've got to keep cleaning your brush so you don't spread it out of control. And then we need some shading under this area as well. I'm going to just leave that like that, and I know it's covered up the little wooden bits, but I'll put those back in with pen at the end. I'm going to mix a little bit of the indigo with a little bit of the Mars yellow. See what that looks like. More indigo. And I'm going to use that as a dark colour. So I want to go dark on the centre of these flowers. And because we've made essentially made a kind of black, but we've made it from the colours that are used in the picture, so it harmonises than being a completely different black that doesn't match anything on the page. If you mix other colours from the colours that are on your page, like if you mix your own greys and your blacks and stuff like that, the colours should harmonise. But if you fetch in a completely different colour as a dark, sometimes it just doesn't look right. I'm going to get some of that dark that I've just made and I'm going to drop it in under here. That paint's still wet and that brown just wasn't really dark enough. And I'm just going to use that dark colour right across the very edge of here. Just get right in the corner there. And I'm just creating another little bit of shading under in this little corner here. But I really love the effect that that's caused, that line there. So we've got the dullness against the really bright yellow. And if we zoom out, it looks really effective, doesn't it? Ideally, would like to replicate that over all the areas, but those little bits there, they just happen. Sometimes it's hard to make them intentionally. Getting some of the bright cadmium orange. I'm going to do a nice orange line around, like an orange band around the centre of the flowers. Draw some stalks on here.
Every empty spreadsheet line, loosen up on the grind, simmer down, settle back and mess around, be the cat in the sun, someday I will see the whole deal.
Might go over those with pen at the end, black pen. I'm going to make this roof a little bit lighter, so I'm putting some water on there, just letting that soften a little bit. Just rubbing it a little bit with a paintbrush to try and lift off some of the colour, and then I'm going to dab it with some kitchen paper just to lift some of that out if I can, but it looks like it's pretty stained. Try again. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. And I'm going to use indigo, and I'm going to colour all the stalks of the flowers now. So I'll just mix it in with that kind of black that I made, doesn't matter, because we just want like a really dark blue. And I've got the little rigger brush, which is great for painting little stalks. And I'm going to just paint all the stalks, it's like little thin ones.
Stretch out, lean back, be the cat. Stretch out, lean back, be the cat.
I'm going to get some of the Prussian Blue. I'm going to just add a little bit across this edge, this top edge. Little bit of water, drag it down a bit, not much, just make it a little bit. Darker than it was. Just define that edge a little bit more. And then just rub on the edge with the brush. I'm going to paint the stepping stones in the yellow brown and the Mars yellow. So not much detail, just kind of a hint of colour there. Okay, so I think that's as far as I'm going to take it with the watercolor. I'm going to switch to gouache now and black pen to finish it off. Overall, I'm not sure about these Gansai Tambi paints. I feel as though that's a little bit dull and muddy. I just don't think they're as vibrant. Or maybe I'm just not using them right, because I mean they aren't really for this type of painting. So I've got some different gouache colours in here. I'm just going to give them a spray. I'm going to get a little bit of white. I'll start with the ones on the house. I'm going to paint them all with a layer of white first of all, and then I'll put the colour over the top. Okay, while that white's drying, I'll move on to the coloured ones either side. The same kind of red, orange, blue. Kind of, I'm not going to bring in new colours because it just won't harmonise with the picture. So basically red, orange and blue. Yeah, that gouache is dry now, so go back in, paint over this. Oops, needs to be a little bit thicker than that because it's just lifting. Can you see how it's lifting the white? Because it's so watery, so I'll try not to disturb that. I'll just let that sit on the top. Put a bit of red on these. Right, so they're not dry now. I've dried those off with the heat gun. I'll just show you, look how dull the colours look here compared to these ones, because there's no white behind them. Whoops. I'll just add a few little strokes to these. Add a few little centres to the flowers. Just a little bit of shading just to bring them out a little bit more. I'm going to use the dark gouache and just add a little bit of depth to some of this because it's kind of faded. So this is like a dark indigo gouache and it's kind of a lot stronger. Right, I'm just going to make one final sweep with the heat gun, dry it all off. And the final thing I'm going to do is get a black pen, and I'm just going to use a 0.1 to start with, this one, and I'm going to add some black lines and squiggle. Now I'm not going to absolutely outline everything, but I'm just going to pick some things to emphasize. So I'll start with these. Again, I'm just going to be scribbly. So it kind of fast and loose. I'm going to bring out the centres of these, just a little bit of scribble really. And then in shaded areas, like that's the shaded area of that. Just put a little bit of decoration on. I'll go around the edge of here. In fact, I think I'll just go right down the edge of this roof. Little bit of darkness in the shadowed areas. Those birds are so noisy. I'm surprised you can hear me talking. Seagulls, oh my god, the seagulls. They use the bird bath that I've got, they use it as a toilet. I'm having to clean it out twice a day now. It's supposed to be for all the little birds so they can have a drink, and the seagulls are using it as a toilet. They're literally, it's got to the point where I'm pretty sure they're waiting for me to put clean water in so they can go and have a bath and everything else that they're doing it. But next door there's two little baby seagulls. They're so cute. I'll show you them. I've filmed them. I'll just insert it here. They're so cute. Literally just in a few days they seem to have doubled in size. Right, I'm going to have to make this a lot darker under here. So we've got, these were little wooden structure parts that was holding the canopy up. So I'll just put a little bit of blackness in there. Maybe do a few little hints of tiles here. I'll emphasise these more, just add some black lines. They look a little bit better like that, I think. Go around the edge of the door and then I'll draw these lines back in with the black pen. I think I'll draw some roof tiles on here as well. And then with a little bit of white gouache, I'll paint some little white roof, hints of white roof tiles on this one, just to make it a bit different. I'm going to add a little bit of the Prussian Blue to these windows, maybe just at the top, and just drag it down a little bit, just an extra little bit of colour there, because I think they're just like, we're lacking a little bit. And I think that is it. I'm going to finish it there. I don't think I can add any more to that. So there we go, I'll get it cut out. And there we go, there's the final painting. So as always, the line drawing is available for you to download, and the real-time version is available on my Patreon, along with other art videos and kind of behind the scenes videos. So that's available if you want to go and take a look at that. And I'll have another video up next Friday. So thank you very much for watching.